welcome back to the She Shed. Today we are going to be making a snood, and this snood is going to have lots of little lumps on it, or little bubbles or bumps. It's a very quick and simple pattern. If you know how to do half double crochet and a double crochet, you'll knock this up in no time. The yarn I will be using is Mondo Very Jansen. I got this from Spotlight, and as you can see, it is acrylic, nylon, mohair and wool. And the hook I will be using is a 8mm hook, and I like how it goes with the yarn. Okay, let's get started. I always start my chain with a hook size bigger, so I do my chain in a bigger, one size up to the hook I will be using throughout the garment. And the reason why is because this will make the chain nice and loose, and therefore not be tight at one end and then loose at the other end. Both ends will be the same. So start yourself with a slip stitch, and because I'm using an 8 for my entire garment, I will be using a 9 to start off the chain. So the chain is going to be 70. Here is my chain of 70. I'm now going to swap my hook over to my smaller hook, which is my 8mm hook. I'm going to chain 1, and all our stitches for this row are going to be worked in the back of the stitch in the loop. The front of the stitch has the V, the back of the stitch has the loop. So we are going to do a half double crochet in the back of each loop. So you've chained 1, you're not working in that chain stitch, which is that first stitch there, you're working into the next stitch. And you're doing half double crochets into the back of the stitch. You can continue on, and I will meet you at the end of this row. Last couple of stitches. Okay, first row finished. Now we have to join this to make a circle, because you can't have a snood without being circular. And this is why I don't join the chain together. I join the circle after my first row. I just find it really hard to try and make it straight without a twist. So if you lie it on the table after your first row, you can see there's no twist, and then we can join. And joining is a slip stitch in the top of the first stitch. Oop, wonder if I get the right one. There we go. There we go. Now I will be joining the bottom here, but I'm just going to do a couple of stitches first, just so it's not flapping around all over the place. Just make sure before you start going that you've got it all straight and not twisted. Wonderful, mine's done. So second row is chain 1, and then in the top of every stitch, so not in the stitch there which has the chain 1 on it, skip over, we are doing a half double crochet in each stitch for the whole round. So I'm just going to do a couple of stitches, and then I'm going to stitch up the bottom. To stitch this bottom up, grab your yarn needle, go through the very top of the first stitch, don't pull super tight, you want to make it look like a stitch, then go through the very top of where you just came from, the other side, and pull until it looks like a stitch. See that? And then I just let it hang so I know where I started. It's just a good indicator. And then at the end I'm going to tie it in. Alright, and then we are just going to continue going around this row, and I will meet you back at the end of this round. Okay, last stitch of round 2, half double crochet, and then to join the round together, slip stitch in the top of the first stitch. There we go. So that is round 2, row 2, and then the next row is going to be the same. So we are going to chain 1, don't put a stitch in the chain where the chain is, skip over that and do a half double crochet in every stitch as we go around for this row. I will continue off camera and meet you back here at the end of this row or round. Last stitch of round 3, and then slip stitch into the top of the first stitch of the round to join the round together. Okay, so you should have 3 rows now, or 3 rounds. And this is where we're now going to start onto the bubbles or the lumps or the bumps. And so we are going to chain 2, and we need to turn our work. To get the bubbles or the lumps or the bumps to be facing outwards, we need to work from the inside. And you'll see what I mean when we start. So we are going to do a lumpy lump. I've got to work out a name to give them. Shall we call them bubbles? And we're going to do, let's start that again. Yarn over, into the stitch, pull your yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, into the same stitch, pull your yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over into the same stitch for the 3rd time, grab a yarn, pull it through, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, and you should have 4 little loops on the hook, pull through all 4. Next stitch, we are just going to do a single crochet, get it right. And then the next stitch we're going to do another bubble. So yarn over into the stitch, pull your yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over into the same stitch, pull your yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over into the same stitch for the 3rd time, pull your yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the 4 that were on your stitch. Next stitch, single crochet. Next stitch, bubble stitch, yarn over, go through the stitch, pull your yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over into the same stitch, pull your yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over into the same stitch for the 3rd time, pull your yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, then yarn over, pull through the 4 on your hook, and your next stitch is going to be a single crochet. And then when you have a look, you'll have nice big fat lumps. Quite effective. Love the look. And the chunky yarn, the bigger than fat they will be. And you can continue doing the round with that. So one stitch is your bubble stitch, and then the next stitch is your single crochet. Next stitch is your bubble stitch, and the next stitch is your single crochet. Single crochet. Okay, so continue doing that all the way around, and I'll meet you back at the end of this round. Last few stitches, bubble stitch, then a slip stitch, and then in the stitch just before the chain, do a bubble stitch. Now you could leave that and not bother with a stitch in there whatsoever, and then just like we're going to do here, put a slip stitch in the top of your chain. But what happens is if you don't do that, you're going to get a big gap here. So putting that extra bubble in there closes that gap and makes it much neater there. Okay, so it should look like this. Very pretty. I love the look. All right, and you want it now facing you because this next row is going to be a half double crochet row. Okay, but before you turn it, chain 1 and then turn. Okay, so in every stitch now we are putting a half double crochet. So there should be a stitch above the bubble, a stitch in between the bubbles, stitch above the bubble, stitch between the bubbles. Remember, you're doing half double crochets. And if you go with this principle of stitch above the bubble and a stitch between the bubbles, you'll remain with the same amount of stitches. I will meet you back here at the end of this round. At the end of round 5, last couple of stitches, so one in the dip, one in the bubble, and then let's slip stitch the round together. There we go. Alright, next one we have to turn inside out again because this is going to be a bubble round. First of all, chain 2 and then turn inside out. Now when you are doing your round here, just make sure that you're lining your bubbles up. Now there's no rhyme or reason to say that you have to have your bubbles lining up. You can line them up like I did here, or you can make them sit, let's see if I can demonstrate, sit in between. So this one, can you see there? This one could go there, in between the other two, followed by that going there and in between. So I've shifted that, but I actually, mine pretty much line up. See? So it's up to you. It's not a big one, but if you decide that you want them to line up, then make sure that when you are doing your bubble stitches, so I always check. So my first stitch is going to be a bubble stitch. then single crochet, then a bubble stitch, then a single crochet, and then I just do a quick eyeball. There we go, they line up. So I'm happy with that. I actually want it to line up, but if you didn't want it to line up, then start off with a single crochet, then a bubble stitch, then a single, and it'll actually sit. Can I make it do it? It'll sit like that. So if you want it to do that, then start off with a single crochet. If you want it to line up, then start off with a bubble stitch. Okay, so for this round, round 6, we are going to do the same as round 4, which is a bubble stitch, followed by a single crochet, then a bubble stitch, then a single crochet, then a bubble stitch, then a single crochet, and I will meet you at the end of this round. Last stitch of round 6 is a bubble stitch, and then join your stitch together, your round together, by putting a slip stitch in the top of the chain of the round. Okay, and then we are chaining 1. Turn your work back facing you, and you should have 2 wonderful rows of bubble. Next row is back to your half double crochet in each stitch. So starting off with in your bubble stitch, then the gap between, then top of your bubble stitch, then the gap between, and so on and so forth. Then the next round will be bubble stitch, next round your half double crochet, next round bubble stitch, next round half double crochet. What you are doing is creating 5 rounds of bubble stitch. So what you will do is for round 7, do this, which is what we're on now. You're doing a half double crochet. Round 8 will be a bubble stitch, so that'll be your 3rd one. Row 9 will be your half double crochet. Row 10 will be a bubble stitch. Row 11 half double crochet, and row 12 bubble stitch. And this is now your pattern for 5 rounds of bubble stitch. So continue on doing your half double crochet followed by a bubble stitch round, half double crochet, bubble stitch round, half double crochet, bubble stitch round. I'm going to meet you at the end of your 5th round of bubble stitch, and then I'll show you what we do next. Alright, so we've done our 5 rows of bubbles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what we are now going to do are the next 3 rows of half double crochet. Okay, so before you turn your work the right way, chain 1, then turn it the right way, and do a row of half double crochet. And you are now going to do 3 rows of half double crochet with the work facing you the whole time. So I will meet you back here after this first row of half double crochet and show you how to get to your second row of half double crochet. At the end of this row, row 13, which is your half double crochet row, then we're slip stitching into the chain of the beginning of the row, chain 1. Don't do your first stitch into that chain there. You're doing your first stitch into there, and then that's just continuing with your half double crochets. So So this will be row or round 14. And I will meet you back at the end of this round. At the end of round 14, do a slip stitch in the top of the chain at the beginning of the round, chain 1, miss that stitch there, and then half double crochet in the next round, round 15. And I will meet you back at the end of this round. At the end of round 15, slip stitch in the top of the chain at the start of the round, and there we go, we have our 3 rows of half double crochet. So the next row is going to be the start of repeating this bubble stitching down here, up here. So we need to chain 2, turn our work inside out, and starting our bubble stitches. So we should be missing the first stitch, and then do our bubble stitches. And then slip stitch, half double crochet, and then a bubble. Half double crochet, and then a bubble. Half double crochet. Now this is where you turn it back in the other way and just eyeball to see that it's lining up. And I reckon it is, which is great news. Alright, so you need to repeat the pattern that you had down here, that we did down here. So if you remember, it was a row of bubbles followed by turning your work forward to do a row of half double crochets, turning your work backwards inside out to do your bubbles, so on and so forth for 5 rows. So you just need to repeat that for 10 rows in total, but 5 rows of bubble. And when you come to the end of your 5th row of your bubble stitch, I'm going to meet you back there to show you how we finish off. End of the last row of the last 5 bubble stitch. So there's the first 5 rows of bubble stitch and the second 5 rows of bubble stitch. Okay, so we're on to the last 3 rows. So chain 1 on your last row, and now we are going to do a row of half double crochet, and I will meet you back here after finishing this row. Okay, so this will have been the 25th row, this row of half double crochet, and we are going to end this row with a slip stitch, connecting the 2 together, then a chain, missing that stitch there, and going into the next stitch and half double crochet all the way around our 26th row. And I will meet you back at the end of this row. End of row 26. So let's slip stitch that together and chain 1, and now we are on our final row, row 27, and it is going to be another row of half double crochet, and I will meet you back here to finish up at the end of this row. End of the final and 27th row, so we're going to slip stitch, to the start of the row, and then we're going to cut off the tail and literally just pull it straight through, because we're going to sew that off and then that'll leave a nice top. So we get our yarn needle and sew in the end. Okay, so there is our snood. It's to, let me see if I can bring it in more. There we go. And with the wool and the mohair in this yarn, it is very soft. Okay, well, I hope you have enjoyed making this snood with me. If you would like to see any other tutorials, please have a look at my list that is there. There are quite a few, and I've got another snood tutorial in there, and I'll leave the link below. I'd love to see any of your photos, so if you'd like to share your photos with me on my Instagram account, which is lucky_platypus1, I'd love to see them. Hopefully I will see you again in my next tutorial. Have a great day, everybody, and take care. See ya!